Hello and welcome to another East Mesa School of Guitar online curriculum training video. In this particular class, we're going to be talking about, I think, one of the most important things we all want to accomplish as musicians, and that's being able to mix between rhythm and lead, all in the same song or the same chord progression or whatever it happened to be. Every time we watch our favorite guitar players, they're doing this. They're maybe play a chord for a while and they play a lead and they come back to the chord, and it always works seamlessly. This particular class, we're going to be building the foundation for being able to always get back on time and be able to kind of start to create your own style and voice on the guitar. Before we get started, you should have received a PDF that looks something like this, Mixing Rhythm and Lead Mastery Training. And in this particular video, we're probably going to be talking through exercise 1 and maybe exercise 2, depending on how time falls out. But just know that this is going to be a PDF that you're going to use multiple times. So I just want to kind of talk through each one of these exercises. Exercise 1, exercise 2 represents one measure of music. In this particular case, we're playing in 4/4, so that means we have 1 beat, 2 beats, 3 beats, 4 beats. And when we're counting that, if we're counting it to kind of figure out where we are in the music or just kind of get the feel for it, we're just counting out 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, in this particular instance, we're going to add a little bit of challenge. So if you're watching this particular class, that's probably because you can already play rhythm, you can already play lead, and now you're kind of working on building your timing so that you can mix between those as fluidly as possible or as effortless as possible. We want to not think about this whenever possible. So we're just kind of thinking, just like we have 4 shoots here, and in each shoot, we're going to be doing something specific. The first shoot, we're going to be hitting a bass note or a chord. So that could be, if we're working on an A here, just kind of hitting that A note, and then we're going to have a rest for beat 2, and we'll talk about what this click means here in a minute. Rest just means that we're silent. And then for exercise 1, we're going to go back to that same chord or bass note. The next beat, which is going to have a click here, we're going to do a rest. So if I'm counting 1, 2, 3, 4, I would have 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. If I were using power chords, maybe I might play an A power chord and have 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And something that I want to talk about real quick, how am I getting those rests, or how am I stopping it, is a question that I hear a lot. There's a couple of different answers for that. If you happen to be playing one note and you play that first beat, the easiest way to mute that is just lift your finger, release your finger from the string. So I don't necessarily lift it up because you might get some noise there, but I just kind of release my finger off, and my finger then becomes a mute. The other thing that's super easy is once you play your note and it's rung out for a beat, just kind of add your karate chop, your palm mute there. And if you really wanted to make sure that everything you play is super quiet during those rests, because we want to honor the length of the note when we're making noise and when we're resting, you can apply both of these together. So you can lift up or release off the notes with your fingers if you're doing bar chords, if you're doing open chords, whatever it happens to be, and apply that palm mute. That way you get uber muting there. So that's what we're talking about when we look on the sheet, and we have the note, the bass note or the chord. Again, bass note or chord, whatever you happen to be working with in class. A rest, we're actually muting that out, another bass note for beat 3, and then a rest. Now this is where it's going to get fun. I am going to play a metronome that is set to 50 beats per minute or 50 BPM. And the one that I am using, I'll make sure there's a link down below, but the one that I'm using looks something like this. So we've got that going, 30 minutes worth of click. It's more than enough to be able to go through as many exercises as you want to. But one thing that you might notice is that this click feels kind of slow. And if you've attended any classes talking about timing or rhythm, you'll know that as the BPMs or the beats per minute get slower, it becomes harder and harder to keep time. So why, if we're working on mixing rhythm and lead and kind of thinking about multiple things at once, why would I want to slow that beat down? And here is where your playing level and your hard work is going to pay off, because you've trained yourself to be able to play in time with rhythm. You've trained to play yourself in time, trained yourself to play in time playing lead. Say that 10 times fast. So now what we want to do is start having you listen almost like you would listen if you were playing with a band. So let me start our click here. And basically, we've got our click going. And if we put a visual to it here, our click is happening on beats 2 and 4. So that means we're actually playing notes, bass notes, chords, whatever it happens to be, when there is no click. So this can be very interesting to get started, but if we think about how a drum beat works in a rock or blues, sometimes a country or jazz, you're hitting the snare, the drummer's hitting the snare on 2 and 4. So those are things that we really want to focus on. And this slower beat, we're basically thinking of this 50 BPM is actually 100, because we're kind of taking the space to put our chords in. So if I were counting through this, what I would probably do is do 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And let me stop this real quick. Just so you know, if this feels fast, because it's actually 100 BPM since we're doubling it, that's okay. You can find metronomes all the way down to probably 20 BPM. So that would, that's plenty slow to be able to play at most anything. So, if you go down to 45, you go down to 40, there's nothing wrong with that. That just gives your brain more time to process what's happening. So the exercise that we're doing with that metronome going, we're figuring out what the count is. So if we have 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now I'm going to try it with power chords. So we'd have 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. All right. So this, as you can hear, it's making you really stop and think about where those clicks are and then filling in between those. But once you get the feel for it, it's tightening up your timing at a subconscious level that will serve you for the rest of your life. Every time you play music, every time you hear music, that rhythm, that underlying pulse is going to become a part of you. And totally get that this may be frustrating. This was frustrating for me when I started doing it. And I started playing drums, but when I had an instructor show me this and start training me this way, it really kind of took me a little while to get used to that, but the frustration paid off. And then you just kind of get to a point where you instinctually know where that pulse is. You don't have to worry about it anymore after that. All right, so we've got chord or bass note, click, chord or bass note, click. Let's start adding some fun in here. So I'm only going to give you a few examples so you can start taking a look at this. But example 2, what we're doing is we're doing a bass note or a chord, and then we're doing a 1-note lead on beat 3. So that 1-note lead can be, if you happen to be playing with the A power chord or the A bass note, just think about that 1-note lead being somewhere out of the A minor pentatonic, just 1 note. So if I were playing through 1, 2, 3, 4, and I hit my A bass note, and then there'll be a click, I might want to go down and maybe hit the A at the 7th fret of the D string. So we'd have 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. If that's easy, then I would definitely say maybe try a power chord and see how that works. And going down and hitting that 7th fret of the D string, so we'd have 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, maybe you want a little more spice and the root note is not doing it. Make your note the 5th fret of the G string, and this will give us kind of a bluesy, blues rock sound. So again, if we're doing bass note or power chord, we'd have 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And I'll put these over the top of the metronome here in a minute. Okay, let's say bass notes and power chords and getting to 1 note, that's easy. You're able to do that and kind of keep time over the top of our slow metronome. If you happen to have other chord shapes or different shapes that you're using to play rhythm with, like for instance maybe a triad starting on the D string root, and if you don't know what that is, don't worry about it. You'll definitely cover it in the future. Just trying to give some options for people as they're playing through this. So maybe you have this A major triad, or maybe you're using an A7 triad. You're getting a little funky stuff in there. You can do the exact same thing, only now it gets challenging because we have to switch to single note playing to a triad, single note playing triad. So just kind of give you a quick, for instance, what that might sound like. If I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So you get the idea. You're basically making your brain keep time, or your body keep time, while you're switching between some of these sometimes static shapes into a totally different way of thinking, which would be phrasing. And you might have noticed I was adding a little bit of micro bends on there. I was sliding. You definitely can slide into these notes. Make it challenging enough to where you have to kind of think and keep track, but make it sound cool. I mean, definitely have fun doing it. So to wrap up is exercise 1 and 2. Make sure we're not taking too much time here. I'm going to play the metronome, and I'm going to play through exercise 1 a few times with different bass notes, chord shapes. Everything's going to be based off A. So, A bass note, A power chord, A triad, maybe an A7 triad. And then I'm going to go to exercise 2, and I'm going to do bass notes, power chords, triads, maybe a couple other chord shapes in there, all based off A, and then I'm going to go to a note in the A minor, and we'll kind of see how this can fire up your creativity. So again, we want to get started with 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. All right. Again, if some of these chord shapes are unfamiliar, that's okay. Don't worry about that. You'll pick that up moving forward. Just use what you know and what makes the most sense. Okay, so I'm going to go to exercise 2 on that sheet where we're going to play some kind of bass note or chord and then some kind of lead. And I'm going to start putting in maybe some vibrato and slides just to make it sound a little more fun, a little more rocky. All right, so if we have 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, so you kind of get the idea there. Let me stop my metronome. So literally, how you should practice this is, have this exercise sheet in front of you, and for maybe the length of a song, 2 or 3 minutes, 3 to 5 minutes, go through exercises 1 and 2. Again, to whatever your playing level is right now. If it's bass notes, go for bass notes and just play exercise 1. If it's maybe power chords and a note out of the A minor pentatonic, then definitely use that. Just throw on this metronome, or if you have one of the tuners or little metronomes that even the mechanical ones, you definitely could use that. Just put it down at 50, 45, maybe 40 if it's going by too fast. Figure out where that pulse is, counting 2 and 4 on the clicks, and then just have fun with it, because this is simulating exactly what happens when you play with a band or when you go to a jam session. You have to keep track of, you're playing a rhythm, you're kind of staying in time, and then every so often you're going to be able to play something to maybe enhance the musical situation, or maybe do a call and response with the vocalist. Whatever it is, it's making you think exactly like a musician thinks. All right, so take these, have fun with them, and as always, as you're going through these, if you have questions, definitely write those down, bring them to class, and your instructor will be able to answer those. If there are things that you're like, I have no idea what he was talking about, make note of those things and bring them up, but just know they're probably in your path a little way down. So just do what you can do right now, because that's the key. Just taking that first step and just keep stepping forward, stepping forward. If you're frustrated, you're in the right place. That means you're challenging yourself. If it's too easy, let us know. We'll give you some challenges. All right? Have fun and rock and roll.